Welcome to MoonShooting, a podcast about using your power to achieve your dream, reconnecting to your passion, and the money to get you there. In MoonShooting, your dream is not about what you create or what you achieve. It's about you. You are the brand. You are the dream. You are the moonshot.
What does everybody want? Power. In their relationships, in their social circles, in business, and over their creations, and in their life. You are somewhere on the spectrum of being either powerless or powerful. In these 5 episodes, we will focus on the power of you and how you use it to either build a powerful or powerless life, no matter what path you're on.
In this episode, we talk about how to increase the value of your brand by spring cleaning your relationships. Mark will show us how to live by the motto, if your relationships aren't selling you, then they're selling you out. Hi.
Hey.
Welcome back. So I'm really excited to dive into this episode because it's all about, like I just said, spring cleaning our relationships. And I know that's a big topic about, finding the toxic people in your life. And, something I've just learned about is creating space for things that you don't know could benefit you. And a lot of that, the first part of it comes from
Spring cleaning your relationships.
Spring cleaning your relationships. Exactly.
So the thing that you said, which is interesting, which most people think and make the mistake on, is the notion of toxic relationships, right? Because some people have a high bar for that or a low bar for that or whatever, and it's like negative. It's very negative, right? So what we're talking about here in increasing the best and easiest way to increase the brand value of you, the value of you, is to get rid of the relationships, whether they're family, university relationships, any kind of relationships that don't give you that premium or super premium we talked about in episode 9. Mm-hmm. Like the way to get to that is to only have people around you who are either supporting you, helping you, or part of your tribe that actually help you with your energy, help you with your value. They're selling you, and they're actively selling you by either helping you or talking about you or part of your team, right?
Right.
Remember, if people aren't actively helping you, they're reducing your value, even if they're not negatively talking about you.
Right.
Right? So the notion of toxicity is kind of the first level that you might want to get rid of. But really, we talked about last time at the end of the show, pruning. You just got to cut off a bunch of people that just aren't, and you know it.
Right.
The first part is pretty easily, the bottom 20 to 30%, like, you can cut them off, right? Mm-hmm. And that's the next section we go into. But let's talk about some examples of what other people are saying that give validity to this. So the first one is Snoop Dogg. And I sent you this clip. And There's a super great clip of Snoop Dogg talking to a podcaster. And he said, hey, brother, even if I liked you, but you weren't helping me get to the next level, I would essentially dump you. I would essentially get rid of you. And I've heard other people talk about this. Warren Buffett talks about this. But Snoop also says, look, it doesn't matter who it is. Family, friends. Yeah, no, you cut that off. And you have to cut that off. And the reason he says, too, which is really interesting, he talks about you're the one doing all the work. You're carrying the bags. You're moving it forward. If they're not helping you carry the bags or they're not with you to get to the next level, you have to go, hey, don't take it personally. It's just business. Mm-hmm. It's the business of me. I'm a business, right? And if you don't think of yourself as a business or a brand, you're just going to be a discounted brand. You're going to be a victim and you're going to be complaining all the time about you're not getting paid enough. You're not valuable enough. Well, yeah, because you didn't do anything to increase your value. You didn't prune that tree we talked about last time, right? So the other one that I love, the other example I love, which isn't really a true story, but it actually is sort of a true story about woman comedian, I think it's Joan Rivers, which is Mrs. Maisel, which is at the beginning of the show, she's a 1950s, 1960s housewife, and she's doing the best she can. Husband cheats on her, and then she finds her voice. She finds what she really loves, and she loves to entertain people. She finds her MoonShooting. And as Steven Spielberg said, she never lets it go, and she has to cut off a lot of people, even to the point where when they do a time jump, Sure. Her kids are like, kind of messed up. And she's like, yeah, I'm sorry. My mother wasn't the perfect mother for me, and I'm not going to be the perfect mother for you. But one thing, I know that this is my life's goal. This is my mission. You're going to live your life, and maybe it's not perfect, right? I'm not the perfect mother, but I know that the thing that I do best. And so she gets rid of everybody.
Yeah.
Right? She cuts all the people off, and she's ended up with her manager, which they have a off and on relationship, and then all the people that are around her, which is her team or people, right? And you think at the end she's a little lonely, but at the end, no, she loves what she does. Her audience is the thing that drives her. It's her mission. It's her passion. It's her best life.
Yeah.
Right? And her best life isn't about making everybody happy. It's about the thing that she loves.
Yeah.
To do.
Which I think that's that hits a soft spot because you mentioned not doing what everybody else wants or not just doing things to please everyone. I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, especially people my age, is kind of getting past that mountain of people pleasing and making sure everybody's happy with your choices, but not really sitting with the fact that it is your life, even if it's your family, even if it's your close friends, and they say, oh, we want the best for you. Like, well, at the end of the day, it's still you. So I think that really speaks to that, what you just said there.
So the classic thing in the intro when we talk about, and I heard this at a board meeting from a government contractor or government guy, and it hit me so hard. If people aren't selling you, then they're selling you out. And you had a hard time with this.
Yeah.
And it's kind of hard to sink in. The thing that's really interesting is there's a difference between the sin of omission and the sin of commission. If I could do something to help you and I don't, or I have knowledge of something and I don't tell you, am I hurting you? Of course I am. In business, people wouldn't tell me stuff and then later said, well, I said, you knew about this and it could hurt me. Well, yeah, it's not my business. I go, yeah, it is, because I was helping you. I went about a lot and I helped a lot of other people with finding clients. I would take a client that I had and refer it to a tax accountant or refer it to a bunch of other people, insurance guys. And then I was always, why aren't you referring me your clients? You're referring me your prospects, hoping I would close the prospects for you. Now I work for you. That's the sin of omission. They weren't selling me. They weren't actively. And they're like, oh no, I got to make my numbers. Well, yeah, then if we're all doing our own thing, then we're not collectively rising. If you sell for me and I sell for you, we help each other out, that's great. And at some point I was like, this is nonsense. So if your friends or your relations or people are silent when they know they could help you or support you or be there for you, then they're bringing you down. They're devaluing you. Or if they're giving you unsolicited advice. Or if they're calling you up all the time to go out, but then they never show up. Or they cut out the last thing, or they waste your time.
Right.
Right?
They kind of string you along and then flake on you and,
right. Right, because they're focused on themselves.
Yeah.
Right? So you need to focus on you. You need to be violently focused on you, your mission, your passion. And that's what the universe gave you. God gave you, the universe, whatever you want to call it. He gave you a soul contract. You have a contract to go do things, right? And if you let everybody bring you down, first of all the people around you aren't going to be happy, right? And it's not your responsibility.
Yeah.
Your responsibility, if you have kids, to feed them, clothe them, and get them to a certain point and help them as much as you can. But really, you can't live their lives for them. Yeah. Right? Your friends, your relationships, stuff like that, right? And you might go around thinking that you need these people because they have a power or something you don't have. No, you have everything you need. You're powerful. You have the power to do anything. And the best way to hone your superpower and hone your expertise, whatever your superpower is, and we are going to focus heavily on this, your superpowers and the value of the superpower and how you hone that and create value and dramatically in ways that will increase your value in a numeric basis and in an intangible basis, is essentially by getting rid of the things that will keep you back. Creating that space. And again, remember, creating the space isn't like, you could have some casual friends and you're like, okay, every once in a while they call me and great, but like, this is like, they're not helping me. So I really have to block that. Yeah. They call you when they need something, basically.
Right. And
they're nice people.
Are you speaking to the quality of the time when you're with them? Like, how is that time used? Is it somebody that just calls you up because they want to complain? and then they don't ask you how your life is going or what's going on in your life, kind of like those one-way relationships?
Not really, because you think of anything that doesn't get you to the next level as a distraction. Think of things as distractions. People might call you up and be on time and take you out to a movie when you really should have been doing something else.
Okay, I see
Right?
what you're saying.
That's a distraction, right? It's not their fault,
Sure.
right?
It's not toxic, like you were saying.
No,
Like,
not at all.
we're so focused on cut out the toxic, but
Right.
kind of changing the game, thinking about people who distract you and kind of,
It's white noise.
yeah.
You're bored and you're not focused on your thing. So someone calls you up, you go out to the movie with them. If you actively commit to time where you have 3 great friends or a certain group of people, that when you're out with them, you come back and you feel better, and it makes you more active because they've got something going on that they love, they're passionate about, and you connect to their passion. They don't have to help you. They just can't be sucking your energy. They can't be energy vampires, which I love what we do in the shadows.
What we do in the shadows.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they can't be Colin Robinsons. Well, they suck your time. They distract you, right? Because they're bored.
Right.
You want people around you that are living their best life, that are passionate, abundant, and free,
Right.
right? And the more you're around that, the more you're going to elevate your game. And
see.
you constantly want to be elevating your game and using your own superpowers and being around that kind of energy,
Right.
right?
That's a great
Right.
way of thinking about it.
There are kids in college that have just gone off that that gone off and had kids and stuff. You just don't connect with them anymore. When you go back home, you may want to see their kids because that's like your free time. Great. But to try to have a relationship where you're talking all the time, where you try to force that or you think that that's there, no, get rid of that.
Or you think that you have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like some obligation.
Right.
You have no obligation other than to your brand, to you, to your soul contract, to your mission, to your passion.
Right.
That was Snoop Dogg. That was Mrs. Maisel. That's Warren Buffett. That's all these people. And we allow the CEOs and the billionaires to do that. We're like, oh, yeah, I'm sure, Richard Branson does that, but it's okay because he's a billionaire.
Right.
Rich people can do that. Mark Zuckerberg can be totally selfish and narcissistic and work on his brand.
He's probably busy working on Facebook, like
Right.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's not going to have any relationship that don't help him. Elon Musk isn't.
Yeah.
Like everything he's doing is to help Tesla and SpaceX and everything else he's doing, which is really to help the planet, but really ultimately what he's called to do.
Yeah.
His calling.
We kind of let them off the hook, but don't let ourselves off the hook.
100%.
And we need to have that millionaire mindset or that.
My father was a football coach, and football coaches got away with a lot. They were allowed to work late. There was a lot of these football coaches that worked 24 hours a day. It's great. Well, so if he was an insurance guy like your father or somebody else, no. Or why isn't he home taking care of the family? Oh, no, football's very important to us. A coach, he's dedicated. They're winners. He's winning. And it's whatever winning takes. Okay. But yes, so in one aspect, he's doing exactly what I'm talking about. He's focused on that. I used to be so mad at my dad for doing what I'm now promoting. Like he didn't have time for me. And I think back and he told me this, Mark, I'm doing what I loved. I wanted to have a family, a football coach, and all right, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, oh, you suck. You're not spending time with me. And now I'm like, no, wait a second. He was right.
Yeah.
Right.
And he did spend time with you. It's not like he was an absent.
Oh, no,
father.
I forced myself to go with him. And I've learned a lot from him by hanging out with him where he was best and listening to him. My mother used to say, I used to stick around home. And I said, why did Dad take me to the game or take me to 2001 Space Odyssey when I'm like 9 or 10? And she's like, well, you're just around. I go, I know, because I waited, because I know he had stuff for me. I know that if I just listened to him and was around him, I would do that tribe thing. Yeah. Being around him got me more passionate about whatever I wanted to do. I learned strategy. I learned all this stuff because he would talk to me like I was an adult.
Yeah.
He didn't like hanging out with little kids. I mean, who does? But, he whatever, Yeah. So that's super important that we stay focused on that and that we now do the next thing I'm talking about, which is Kesby's world. Here's the thing that was really powerful to me was when I heard, I think 2 people say this. There was the wife of my kids was starting a tax practice.
The mother of your kids.
The mother of my kids. I'm sorry.
Yes.
The wife of my kids.
I was like, wait.
I hate the ex-wife.
Yeah.
The mother of my
The
children.
mother of your children. Yeah.
She had this guy who was helping her with a tax practice. But he was like he had like a seminar. You'd go to the seminar and he would talk about how do you build a tax practice. And one of the things that he said was most interesting to me, which was sort of counterproductive, he was like, look, you're going to get to a certain capacity where you can only do this many clients. He goes, every year you have to cut the bottom 20%, as painful as that is. Because, and people were like, wait a second, that's like revenue. That's good revenue. Well, no, probably most of your problems are there. The bottom 20%, if you pick the bottom 20%, probably the ones that aren't profitable, they're taking up your time. If you get rid of them, then you open up to new clients. And you only have a limited amount of time, and you only have the capacity to do X. So you have to keep elevating that by cutting off the bottom. One of the best CEOs, considered CEOs in the world, an old patriarchal guy called Jack Welch, that he was the head of GE, and at the time, General Electric was one of the best run companies in the world. It was very strict, and they had lots of different business lines, in multiple different kinds of industries, and he had heads of those industries. He cut, I think, the bottom 10 to 20%, I think it was 10% every year. They were all super high performers. They were all great. But he said, if you're not the top 90 or 80%, you're dragging us down.
Right.
So he got rid of them, and he said that elevated his firm. That was what made his firm great. Cutting them was actually making them better. And it's an evil, awful thing, right?
Yeah.
Think it? No. Those people were better off doing something else, but they knew the game. The game was you had to keep up. You had to be the best. If you weren't, you were keeping us down, right? So those two things are very, when we're talking about your business, like when you're taking on clients or whatever you're doing, that's going to be hard for you, or it's hard for anybody when we're talking about this freedom and going from starting to create your own revenue streams, or starting to create your own business, or starting to sell your own product, or build your own stuff. And any of the icons we've talked about before, they had to cut their agent if they weren't helping them. They had to cut people that around them that weren't getting them to the next level. Even if they got them there, which is a bad thing, they just gotta, you can't get me to here, right? So you got to cut those people out. So in your world, you have to think that way. Not only in relationships, but when you get into business and you have clients, or you have contracts, or you have other things, right? Which is what we're talking about, MoonShooting. To get to your moonshot, you may have to get rid of people that actually reduce your revenue for a small period of time, but long term, it's going to help you create value and increase the things that are going to help you.
Interesting.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes.
Very hard, sort of, in relationships or in business, it's very hard to get rid of those things because we get attached to them. We think we need them.
It definitely feels weird to hear that, or to think about, especially as a small business, letting go clients and letting go of income or revenue streams that you can use to put back into the business. It almost feels like you're cutting off your own leg or your own foot in doing so. But that makes sense. I mean, although there's unknown about what better things or clients that are better performing, or, people that better support you in your life you're making space for, it's hard to think about the material things that you and people and that you're leaving behind. Yeah. So it's a hard concept to think, but it makes sense.
But this goes back to your original, when you quit your job and you went out into the unknown, you would rather go into the unknown than stay with the known if the known wasn't giving you what you really wanted.
Yeah. You just have to be honest about what the known is doing for you.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people create a story around that so they can deal with it,
Well, it's hard to take a step back to take 3 steps forward, always. It's hard to eliminate things that were people like, oh, that person got you there. You got to be loyal to them. You got to be loyal. No, you don't. You got to be loyal to you.
Yeah.
It's not like you have to be disloyal. You have to constantly think of, did I pay that person what they were worth? But no, I'm not going to have that as a chain to get me to the next level. I'm sure in Hollywood where you have an agent that gets you to a certain place, but he's not the agent that's going to get you to the next step. Sorry. Then you need to be that agent that can get me there. If you're not that, then that's not my problem. You're the agent that got me here. And maybe that's your business of getting people to a certain spot. Mm-hmm. Right?
You kind of have to cut the nostalgia. You have to cut, and know that there's no hard feelings. It doesn't mean I don't like you, you're a bad person, or anything like that. It's just,
It's what Snoop Dogg said.
yeah,
It's not personal.
yeah,
It's business.
it's not personal.
A lot of people use business to really do nasty things or bad things to people, or they get them something and they don't pay them for what they did. We're talking about you got paid for what you did.
Mm-hmm.
You got the value. There was an exchange. In a relationship, it's very transactional, right? Because you have ultimately a goal to achieve. At the end of your life, if you achieve that goal, and a bunch of other people are like, oh, they didn't do blah, 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 she wasn't right or wrong. It's very much like, again, that goes back to the social network, Mark Zuckerberg, like what he did. Like, you can say, well, we don't like that. He stole it from these guys, or what he did bad things. Well, he knew that those guys he got to get rid of. He knew that those guys, the people that originally came up with sort of the idea, that his idea was better and that they were going to hold him back. And if they could have helped him, he would have taken it with him.
Yeah.
It was just business,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. And, kind of makes me wonder, how do you really know who is holding you back or not? Or is that kind of something you just know if you're really honest with yourself?
That takes us to law and disorder.
Perfect.
How do you know,
Yeah.
right?
How do you know?
So let's say that you just have a standard that says every year you need to get rid of the bottom 20% of your relationship. That will help you.
Right.
It will help you if you look constantly at the bottom 20% of your relationships and say, they're just not helping me.
Yeah.
Because they wouldn't be in the bottom 20%.
Such a hard thing to,
Right?
to think about.
And it helps you three ways. One, it gives you confidence, because one of the things is you're probably keeping them because you think you need them. Mm-hmm. You need to have a certain amount of relationships, right?
Yeah.
Two, it creates that notion of open space, that pruning. Like, tell us again about that thing that you talked about at the end of the last episode, which I think should be repeated, about the
Basil.
basil. Tell us again about the basil, because basil is so important to say this again.
Okay. Yeah. So I basically, when I would get basil plants, I would just pick off the leaves, I only need 2 leaves. So I pick off 2 individual leaves and put them on my thing. And that's how I would do it. And then eventually, all those leaves would be picked off and you're just left with just bare stalks. And then at some point I looked it up or researched how the actual right way. I stumbled upon that there's actually a right way to prune basil. And the right way was actually to take scissors or use your finger and snip off the entire top portion, the top bunch of the basil.
And you thought that was valuable to keep.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, oh no, I shouldn't, I should only take the leaves I need, or, that's what I was doing. It felt weird to take a whole bunch off the top, even if I didn't need all those leaves. But I found out that if you do that, you take up that whole top bunch, what it does is it tells the plant to send more growth hormones to the 2 little bottom stalks underneath that big bunch. And then instead of just 1 big bunch, you get now 2 big bunches. So I was like, oh wow. So actually you get more basil by taking more off.
You took 1 step back to get 2 steps forward.
To get more basil.
Right.
And in this context, we're talking about more abundance, passion, and freedom.
Yeah. So in the 3 things I talk about, which is cutting them off opens up new spaces, right?
Mm-hmm.
Creates new opportunities,
Mm-hmm.
right? But it also takes away the relationships that are potentially negative.
Yeah.
And that's really hard to see, right? So I think the best thing you can take out of this is that the people that aren't helping you are really bad for you and selling you out. And the thing that you should take from this is the notion of good person versus bad person. Good person would never dump their friends or relationships unless they've done something bad, unless they've crossed them, and even when they cross them, they got to give. No, it's not good or bad. It is what's best for you, and what's best for you is that theoretical pruning of that. You got to cut off bunches of things that have outlived their life. Some relationships are meant for a day. Some relationships are meant for a certain period. Very few relationships are meant for a lifetime. Very few, right? And as you get more power and you learn how to use your power and increase your brand, you need to surround yourself with like-minded people. So maybe you started out with them because you were just like them. And maybe they didn't do the things to make it to the next level, or maybe they're not going after their passion, or their passion is something that just isn't what you're into. Maybe their passion is being the best wife or best mother or best father, or you like living a certain life. This is fantastic. But yours is about creating this brand or doing something. And maybe that's their brand, and their brand can't help you with your brand, right? You're not around that energy. And then they're going to gravitate towards the people around their energy that are like them.
And that's awesome.
That's awesome.
Because if, they hung on to someone that isn't in that, then they wouldn't get the chance to meet people that they can connect and relate to and build their brand with.
So the final part of this is MoonShooting. So how does this apply to all you guys out there, right? How does it apply?
Right. Yeah. I know we kind of talked a little bit about it, but let's get really granular with that.
Right. So in the last episode, I'll repeat this again, but this is super important to close with.
Mm-hmm.
In the last episode, we talked about the notion of you're either at a discount, at a premium, or at a ridiculous premium. And how do you move from being a discounted stock or app or value to a premium or ridiculous premium? And the best way, one of the first ways, is to constantly be looking at the people around you, the things around you, your tribe, and constantly evaluate that. And the faster you go, the more you're going to have to do this. So at some point when you really start escalating, I guarantee you Richard Branson doesn't hang out with certain people that he grew into school with.
Yeah.
Just can't. Right? He's constantly adding new relationships. He's constantly doing that thing to get him to his next goal, his next dream, his overall platform. How does he keep his platform relevant? How do you keep that premium value, and how do you make it a ridiculous premium? Oprah's constantly looking at that. They're constantly changing, and that is their relationships. And you'll see somebody that they've been with forever, and all of a sudden they're gone. Like, what happened? And like, the press will want to make a
big deal out of it. Create
right?
Story.
Create stories, create conflict, and it's just a natural evolution. It's part of nature. The nature that you talked about was the pruning of the basil. So if you can think about, you have to prune your relationships constantly, and the more you're trying to go faster and your trajectory is higher, the more you're going to have to prune.
Ooh.
And the more you're going to have to think about pruning. Just the fact that you're going to think about pruning now, you're going to do it naturally. At first, it's going to be hard. At first, it's not going to be natural. At first, you may say the wrong thing because you kind of want to be tactful when you do this, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're not.
Yeah. What does that even look like?
It looks like this. Hey, I'm on a different trajectory, and our relationship is at the point where it's just not working anymore. My problem and sort of my way of resolving it has been sometimes to block people, to shut them out, because I've attracted people that can be bullying or can be mean or can be, and again, it's an attraction that I have because they have a lot of power, and I thought I needed their power. And so at some point I set boundaries, and they just don't want to listen. And you can spend a lot of time and energy trying to get rid of people or prune people. And if they don't want to, then at some point you just have to stop and block.
I see. Yeah.
I have to say that.
Got it. So yeah, go the steps of setting boundaries.
And then blocking, and then saying, hey, it's not working for me anymore. Selfishly, you can't help me with what I'm doing. I got to move on.
Mm-hmm.
Again, the Soup Dog one was really good. He was really strong with that.
Ooh, so I just thought of something too. It sounds like there is a path where you don't have to totally cut people out, but you can reframe what that relationship looks like.
I don't know. That's a hard one. When I'm looking at this, people have basically cut people off, right? If you look at, let's say you look at the Kardashian brand, which is always fascinating because they're like a Keiretsu. Keiretsu is like a platform. It's Japanese, right? Like all the car companies, like they have their certain vendors that only work with certain car companies. They call it a Keiretsu. It's sort of like their own little supply chain. Mm-hmm. If you look at them, what's the constant? The family, the women. What's not the constant? The men in their lives.
Yeah.
They come in and then they think they add value, and if they don't, they got to go.
Mm-hmm.
But they're the constant.
Yeah.
And their brand value just keeps increasing and increasing.
Yeah.
And they're trying, right? Maybe they attract the wrong people, but if you think about it, at the end of the day, you're going to spend a lot of energy blocking somebody? You're going to spend a lot of energy trying to maintain that relationship?
Yeah, or I guess if there is nuance, it should be for the people that especially don't bring you down or drag you down, like especially the ones that are more neutral. Maybe you do enjoy their time, but it just takes up a lot of time. So maybe that's something where you could, set boundaries that they hopefully respect, and, that in a way that it doesn't take up all of your time and energy, so you can put more time and energy back into yourself.
I would say no to that. I would say if you have to have a conversation and even set a boundary, then it's a problem. Then now you're spending energy that they're not spending. You're spending energy trying to manage something. So like your best effort is to prune it, to cut it. And this is hard for you and hard for me and hard for anybody.
Yeah.
And I've cut people off in a very bad way, but I just didn't know how to do it any other way, by blocking them.
Yeah.
I blocked their phone. Like, I'm done.
Wow.
I've had people do that to me. It's like, hey, I just can't deal with this anymore, right? And I got to move on, right? And it's my fault their relationship went bad, or their fault. It doesn't matter. You got to prune it, move on. So what I'm telling you is super harsh. What Warren Buffett said is very harsh. What Mark Zuckerberg was very harsh. This is very hard, very cold, hard fact of you getting to what you want to do. So it's like the cold, hard fact of you quitting a job and thinking about all those clients that you're going to take care of, right? All those people that didn't get the services, that the UCLA brand didn't get your valuable input because you decided, I don't want to add my brand to UCLA anymore. I went to JMU. I'm not adding that value. I'm going to add value to my brand. And whatever doesn't add value to my brand, I have to eliminate. So I am a no to sort of halfway doing it.
Okay.
Eliminate it. Cut it off. Be done with it.
Yeah.
By the way, those people will never come back if they're not, because usually they're getting something from you. And if you're not giving them that thing anymore, they're going to go away.
Yeah.
They will go away. If they come back and they can show that they can add value to you, fine. But there's a reason you're even thinking about it to begin with.
Right.
So you're just worried about hurting their feelings.
Maybe.
Right?
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people.
If you want them in their life and they're adding value to you, keep them. If they're a distraction, then you're never going to get to your goal, but that's your choice. It's your choice to not get to your goal. Just like it was your choice to walk into the unknown and leave behind a good job.
Right.
It's a great job you could have forever. And you were actually helping people and you were doing good work. It just wasn't there for you. You cut that all off, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Think about that. Do the exact same thing you did with that to everybody else.
If they're not
contributing to their brand.
Yeah. If they're not valuing me and my brand.
If you want to be a ridiculously premium brand, you need to surround yourself with other people that have ridiculous premiums. You need to have people that are valued themselves as much as you value yours. And to close this, in the next episode of MoonShooting and the next segment of 5 episodes, we're going to show you how to value yourself financially with some scores, some metrics, and some dollars. How to value yourself as a discounted brand, as a premium brand, as a ridiculous premium brand, and do that in steps to show you what you're losing. If I told you you're losing money by having relationships with them, you would be like, screw that.
Right.
If you're not getting to your dream and helping the people you want long term, you're going to be like, screw that. So I'm telling you, you're not going to get to your dream and help the people that really need your help by hanging out with a bunch of people that really don't need you. And you don't need them. That's what we're talking about. They don't really need you. You don't really need them. But the journey, the lonely journey, you're like, whoa. I don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yeah, or like you said earlier, what if you need friends? What do you feel that you need friends? You need all these relationships. You need this collection.
Snoop Dogg talked about cutting off his mama. She can't help him. If he's cut off his mama and you can't cut off other people, there you go.
Yeah. True. Well, I think easier said than done, but
it's not this journey. This MoonShooting journey is not for the faint of heart. You want to live a life that you love, you have to do things. It's not for the faint of heart, right?
Tough things.
But they're simple things. They're simple decisions. And once you make that decision, the rest is pretty easy. How it gets done, You can make it hard or you can make it easy. Right?
Yeah.
I've seemed to make it hard sometimes. Do things and it's telling people, hey, like I can't. I've done that. I said, hey, like this isn't working for me. And then I get a call in 2 months. I need help. Because they're used to me helping them over the years. It's not that they didn't help me either, but it just doesn't work anymore.
And that's okay.
Right? Maybe it worked in high school. Maybe it worked in college.
Yeah.
Maybe it worked in business. But at some point, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Or maybe it didn't work back then. We thought it did.
Yeah. True. Just a lot more clarity over the years.
Absolutely.
Well, that is a lot of stuff to chew on.
That's some tough stuff.
Some stuff that I'm going to really think about.
It's tough love, man.
I hope everybody thinks about that too and kind of sits with that, and to help yourself and yourself move forward in life. So I think that's awesome.
I think you're going to choose to be a ridiculous premium.
I hope so.
At the end of episode 15, you're going to be like, I got to cut these people off. I'm losing millions and getting what up in my brain.
Wait, that's costing me millions?
Wait, get the hell out.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Stay tuned. All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for listening. And this was a lovely time chatting with you, too. So
I know you want to punch me in the head. Because
No.
it's like, I got to do things I don't want to do.
I know.
Because we're people pleasers at some point. We grew up people pleasers. We grew up wanting everyone to be happy.
Yeah.
And this is contrary to that.
Yeah, and it takes a long time to unlearn that. It's not overnight. And
Oh, no, I'm going to rush you through that. We're talking about accelerating this shit.
Oh, okay. I got to buckle up then.
Buckle up, man. You're on the rocket. Let's go.
Yeah, the MoonShooting
It
rocket.
took me 30 years. I'm going to do in 5 episodes.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Buckling up.
Okay, cool.
Well, this has been Kristen Espinosa.
Mark Monica.
And this is MoonShooting Mission Control signing off.
Buckle up. Signing off.